Hello everyone and welcome to CIT 150. This is going to be in regards to introduction to computers. So I have a slide here, but I'm going to do a lot more talking than versus the material that the slide provides. Each week I'm going to do a video discussing the chapter. Excuse me. Each week we're going to have a couple chapters to work on. The other information that I'll include more information in the syllabus and text within the assignment, and a lot of it is in regards to each assignment, how we're going to have it planned. We'll have some exercises toward the end, and we'll also have some information regarding some software that you guys will have the ability to utilize to help with these assignments. It'll make it a lot easier. But we'll start off with the introduction to computer repair. So that'll be chapter 1. These are good qualities. Hopefully we can see all this information here. So good qualities of computer technician, important computer parts, what connects different ports of a computer, and basic computer terms. So some of this stuff that they're showing here in this diagram, it's very, some of it is old school compared to more modern stuff that's going on currently. So as you see here, it has the mouse and keyboard. This is old information. As you go out and work in the field and work as a computer technician, PC tech, whatever the case is, some of this stuff will probably not be used anymore. So this mouse or keyboard, I don't even think they make this anymore. Now some of the older computers will have that, but actually some of the motherboards nowadays, they don't even include that. They just automatically come with a USB because now a mouse or keyboard is USB, maybe even Bluetooth enabled, or even wireless to some others using some type of other radio signal. So this is not going to be available anymore. But older computers do have it, so you might see it and say, "What is this?" Here's your USB ports. This right here is your VGA monitor. So when you're connecting a regular monitor to your computer, you have different ones that you can connect. You have the VGA, which is basically analog signal. Very popular actually. As digital came along, the one below it, the DVI, I thought that was going to replace it. I think DVI came out around 2005, maybe a little bit sooner than 2005. They came, actually, I apologize, 2005 is not when they came out. They came out around 2000, 99, 2000, around that time frame. And at the time when it came out, everyone thought, wow, this is going to be the wave. I even thought so too, but it kind of died off. I mean, some computers have it and some don't. A lot more VGA than I would figured basically. These ports right here is your network cable. So still very popular. NIC cables. A lot of companies, your big companies in Pittsburgh, your Highmarks, your PNC banks, your Duquesne Lights, Comcast, etc. All those people running computers, desktop computers, are using the network cable. Some are using wireless, but a lot of them are still using the regular fiber lines going in. And this right here is just basically just talking about your sound volumes and so forth. This is just a little description of a computer tower. I'm not sure if anyone's ever taken a computer apart or thought about taking it apart and seeing what it could do, but the back of it is the power supply. This piece right here is a CD-DVD drive. Now, more commonly, I don't even think most computers come with a CD drive anymore, because what do you need a CD for? Everything, all the software that people are getting nowadays, it's all off the internet. So if you get an HP computer and you get your drivers, do you think they give you a CD anymore? I don't think so. They just say, here, go to this website and download it and sign in and so forth. Makes it easier. And another thing is your regular conventional hard drive here, such as your IDE, your SCSI drives, your SATA drives, etc. Those are old school computers. They still have those, but majority of people are getting something called a solid state drive or a flash drive, which is basically a little chip that plugs in onto the motherboard and it acts as your hard drive. And it's kind of going away from the old conventional hard drive. So it's allowing more room in the towers now. And then here's your motherboard will be here, and then there's your case. And this right here is just an example of the flat screen monitor and the mouse itself. All right, So some of the different things that we'll talk about is between motherboard components, their purposes and properties, install and configure storage devices, using the appropriate media, compare and contrast various connection interfaces and explain their purposes. Given a scenario, evaluate types of features and display devices, connector types, peripheral devices, laptop hardware, features, etc. We'll talk about new computer technicians should be aware of certain things for the certification, talk about exam, and so forth. So getting a little into this, before we kind of start talking about hardware and software and so forth, we're going to discuss about, just an FYI, some of this information I relay to you will not be written down, so just take some good notes. So one of the things is overview of a computer technician. So hopefully we all, computer technicians are very popular nowadays. Growing up in the early 90s, late 90s, computer technicians was kind of far in between. So for example, if you had a computer issue, they didn't have a Best Buy or Nerd Squad or whatever they're called nowadays to go fix your computer. You had to go to like a mom and pop shop to someone fix computers. And actually back then they charged a lot of money because not many people had computers and not many people knew what a computer is and so forth. So like for my example, like before I went to college, I had a lot of interest in computers, and so I would just take them apart, and the worst case scenario is I'd break it and I'd be able to put it back together, which actually happened a couple of times, but it was a good learning experience. Nowadays, it's like you have a computer problem, you could take it anywhere, you could ship it places. There's so many options available that weren't there 10, 15 years ago. Imagine what the case will be in 20 years from now. I don't know. It'll change very often, I'm sure. Actually, let me go there. Okay, I must went back. All right, so let's talk about a technician qualities. Overview of a computer technician. What is a computer technician? Well, they could be different things. They could be a support. So, for example, let's say that you work for a company that handles fixes computers, repairs, whether it's Macs or PCs or Linux boxes, whatever type of operating system it is. But you might have someone on the front line that sits there and communicates with the new customers come in. So they might do like a little troubleshooting right there, or they might even do troubleshooting over the phone. That could be a PC technician without actually getting down and dirty and so forth. So three of the most important qualities that a technician could have is pretty simple. Active listening skills, a good attitude, an appropriate level to speak. So basically, what you're looking for is when someone's explaining a problem to you, you want to be attentive. You want to listen to what they have to tell you. You want them to know that you're buying into their conversation. You're drawing in. You understand what they want because they want that type of attention. They want to know that the person fixing their computer is able to relate to what they're trying to say. And the other part of it is having a good attitude. They might be sometimes people are upset and just they need something real quick. And you know what? Even though you may be as busy as possible, you want to pay them the greatest attention and also the utmost respect for them. So having those skills, good eye contact, nodding your head and so forth, and just asking some follow-up questions are very helpful. So those are key things that makes a good quality technician. Definitely recommend that. And if you have any questions on some of these things that I talk about, please send me an email or you'll have my text information, phone information. You'll be able to follow along. A good example is in the book on page 4, Chapter 1, Introduction to Computer Repair. They do have some diagrams in there that shows you closed-ended questions, open-ended questions, and it shows you at the bottom from 100% to 0%. So it shows you smiley faces from happy to sad and so forth. So you kind of get a basic understanding of that type of person. So you don't want to go in and say, hey, I need to get my computer fixed, and the person is like in a bad mood or just because you don't know what's going to happen. All right, moving on. So we're going to talk about basic computer parts. All right, basic computer parts. What are they? Computer system includes hardware, software, and firmware. So for example, on the screen here, we know that it's hardware, software, firmware, operating system, and device driver. So this right here is kind of a layout of your motherboard. So this right here is the memory. This hasn't changed. It's still the same way. You still have expansion slots, adapter. So you have the PCI slots and the trying to remember the other slots. So you have your PCI slots, and you have like your slot for your accelerated graphics card, AGP slot. You have your CPU area. That's where your central processing unit goes at. So that's basically the guy that does all the thinking for the computer, runs everything. On top of that is where your heatsink will go at, and it's basically a heatsink is a device that cools down the system. But on top of that, it has a fan that you don't see here yet. So you have the heatsink that cools the processor down because it's doing a lot of work. And then on top of that, you have a fan that's even cooling that down. So you have all this cool work. And then on top of it, when you go back to the, let's see back here, yeah, right here, you have your power supply, and there's another fan in there. So you have a lot of cooling going on. Some of the newer systems, I wouldn't go this route, but it's something that they're doing. They're actually running a cooling system in there, like a tube, and the tube has a constant flow of water flowing through it. So yeah, imagine if it burst, boom, there goes your computer, it's fried. But I've heard that this is very helpful, and it's a new way of cooling your system down. I've never tried it, and I don't know if I'll ever try it because I don't trust it. Because if I spent $2,000 on building this awesome gaming machine and I have a flow of water rolling through it and something bursts, and guess what? That's $2,000 down the drain. So that's where I'm kind of skeptic about that approach. But that's what some of the people are, some of the experts are recommending. So I'm not sure if you run across anything like that, but that's something different. So moving on here, we're talking about the basic understanding of a computer part. You have your operating system, your kernel system, your device drivers, your video BIOS, so your begin input output system, your device drivers, your keyboard, your video card, your hard drive, etc. So what is hardware? Hardware is basically anything that you can touch or feel, physical parts of a computer. So hardware could be, the memory. It could be the hard drive. It could be the video card, etc. It could be anything along that lines. Software is, we're all very familiar with software. So for example, in this day and age, everyone has a phone, an iPhone, or Android, and those apps are called applications, software basically, that allows us to do something. Operating system, good example. Most computers nowadays are running either Windows 8, Windows 10, and Windows 7, or they're using the Mac. If you have a Mac, you're using OS X, one of those versions, whether it's Mavericks or what's the new one that is out. They have so many different ones they keep coming out with, Yosemite and so forth, and El Capitan's the newest one. So those are operating systems. And then you have Linux, and then you have these operating systems that are open source that people are writing on their own. So you have those as well. So those are operating systems as well as your phone. You have iOS and Android. Those are operating systems as well. So those are so many different operating systems that are out there that were never like that before. Then we talk about a device driver. So what is a device driver? This is a very important information because it's a little different with Windows and Mac. Mac just knows. It just has all that information for you. But with Windows, it gets a little bit more difficult because all that information is not provided to you. So a device driver is a special piece of software designed to enable hardware components. So an example would be, all right, so let's say that you installed this video card in your computer, okay? We know that's an AGP, so accelerated graphics card. So we know that's a fast card. And we go to run it, and, well, the video is kind of blurry, and it's like an old 256 pixel. It's kind of blurry and big and whatever. And what's missing? Well, firmware is missing. So what it is just basically software instructions telling the device how to work. Without that, then it doesn't work properly. And that would just be an example. Old days was the mouse. Actually, a lot of cases with Apple, it picks it up automatically, but sometimes with Windows, it doesn't pick it up automatically. You have to download firmware, which is, to me, is too confusing. It needs to be a better way of doing it. Moving on a little bit here. BIOS. So what is a BIOS? Basic input-output system. It basically allows the computer to start up. It has, just think of this as when your vehicle starts up in the morning. It has a list of commands, a list of things that has to happen. So you turn the key and the vehicle starts up. That's the only piece you see. Or nowadays you press a button and the computer and the vehicle starts. But there's a lot of things that has to happen for all that to work. And in retrospect of a computer, a BIOS is that is the same way as a vehicle starting up. It has things that it has to go through and check things and make sure that the right processes are happening and so forth, and the computer is able to work. So you could look more about BIOS. You could look it up on Google, find out some more information. You could do YouTube videos and so forth. Talk about PC. What is PC? Well, a lot of times people get confused. PC stands for personal computer. Somebody might have a Mac and they're like, I have a PC, and then you find out they have an Apple computer. So it's just a common mnemonic naming convention, and PC just stands for personal computer. Internet appliance. This is basically internet appliance is used for any device that uses the internet access. So, for example, you may have commonly today, or like your smartphone. So you're using an Android phone. So let's say you have a Samsung or you have an iPhone. Those would be some type of appliance using the internet. Nowadays, everything uses the internet. Way back when internet happened, all they had was a computer with a modem, and it made this crazy sound and all these sounds for it to start up. But now, it's not just your phone, but they have these things called drones that communicate with the internet. Your TV communicates with the internet. They have these little devices called Roku or Apple TV that communicates with the internet. Your refrigerator communicates with the internet. I'm not sure if anyone's seen it now, but they have I'm trying to remember, I think it's Samsung or one of the brand names has a software that communicates with the internet. And what it does is it's really impressive how it works. It uses scanning software and scans your refrigerator and tells you what you're missing. So let's say that it knew that last week you had a half a gallon of milk in there, and it'll let you know that, hey, you know what, you have you have it in there, but it's able to scan and tell you how much quantity is on there. It might be able to say you have a third of the milk left. That's amazing, and it's able to pick that up and shoot you emails or text messages. And while you're at the store, it's just amazing, but it's also scary that it can know all this stuff about you. It's able to define where you're at and so forth. So just think about that. Think about all those different appliances could happen. KVM switches. Those are a little bit older school, old things. KVM switch is basically where you could tie in a bunch of monitors. So if you've ever gone to, like, say, a Sam's Club or Sears or whatever the case is, and they have all these computers plugged into these monitors and so forth, they might have like 8 or 9 monitors, and they have one computer. More likely they're running a KVM switch. It's just a way to, if you see the same thing on all the monitors, they're just basically using a way to duplicate the video content for all the same controls. Power supply, we talked about that. Floppy drive, that's definitely outdated. I don't know if they even make floppy drives anymore. So very old school. Don't have to use that, and I hopefully, if you get a job as a PC technician, you don't have to work on a computer that has a floppy drive in it. I don't even know what to say at that point, but it was popular at one time. We talked a little bit about the motherboard. So think of the motherboard as the ship. Okay, you have an airplane, and how's the airplane fly? It has basically a motherboard, something that tells it what it needs to do, all these different things. And that's basically a motherboard on a computer. Without it, you don't have a computer. Everything has a motherboard. Television has a motherboard. So I'm not sure if you knew that, but your television has a motherboard. Your smartphone has a motherboard, even though it's very small, but it does have a motherboard. So a lot of things have these devices that sometimes people are not aware of. Let's see here, the PowerPoint. So move on here. So a little bit more, as I said, let's see, just kind of see where I'm at here. All right, so just talking a little bit about the motherboard there. As I mentioned, we mentioned some of the different devices. One of the important things to know is a motherboard, a lot of times, like the Gigabyte is a popular brand that I'm really familiar with and really like, because when you install stuff, it's automatic, where other ones you have to do a lot of manual stuff that I don't like to do. But a lot of cases you get this information that comes on the motherboard. So you get your parallel ports. I don't even think these are even included anymore, because no one's using this that's usually for printers. Hooking up printers manually shouldn't be used anymore, maybe old school stuff. And then, as I mentioned, these guys are not on the boards anymore. but you still have your sound, you still have your network cable, and you still have your USB. And then they have some other new features on there as well. But they might have a VGA that comes with it, such as a DVI or a VGA, but you don't have to use it. You might have a NVIDIA is one of their popular video cards. So you might have this video card that has like 3 gigabytes of memory, and you want to use that. Well, you could put that in there and kind of disable that and use that as your primary and so forth. If you want to have a dual monitor, so if you want to have 2 monitors hooked up, you have 2 options. If you're using a desktop, then you're going to need definitely 2 video cards in there. But if you're using a laptop, you could use a docking station. A docking station has 2, more likely all of them have 2 outputs for video, so you could do a dual port that way as well. Wireless and input devices. So, you know, nowadays everything is wireless. Everything's through wireless technology. Can't think of anything that's not wireless nowadays. So there could be additional hardware that's loaded in your computer that allows for wireless information, as well as Bluetooth is a software that's enabling computers, allows computers to have different devices linked up to it. So a lot of newer mouses are Bluetooth. I've tried to use a Bluetooth mouse, not a fan of it personally. I normally try to work with some type of little USB radio connection transmission. It's kind of my part that I like to enjoy a little bit more. All right, so let's see, move on here. All right, there we go. All right, so this right here down the side has an explanation of what each thing is. So you have your output cable here, your actual coax cable. So sometimes older computers had a device that you plugged into that allows you to plug your TV and like your coax cable into the TV. Nowadays you can use HDMI. You can kind of stay away from that, but this right here shows that this board has the ability to plug a actual coax cable from your television into here. This right here is considered your FireWire. FireWire is a faster way of transferring information via cable. Another one is Thunderbolt. You'll learn about that. Thunderbolt is even a faster way of transmitting. You can just transmit so much data through there. Apple computers all come with a Thunderbolt connection, as well as a USB to Thunderbolt, which is extremely fast. Your USBs, your NIC network interface cards, your audio ports, input, output, microphone, speaker, and so forth. Bluetooth, radio, infrared. So Bluetooth. So kind of talking a little bit about the Bluetooth. What is Bluetooth? It's just another radio wave that's able to communicate. It ensures the device is able to power and configure by pairing. Ensure that Bluetooth is enabled on a Windows device. So if you enable it, and it might come up and have something called Windows 8 or something like that, and then you have your phone, for example, and you go to Bluetooth, it'll try to pair, bring up what's on the computer, and you connect to it. You might need to do like some type of confirmation ID or something along that lines and confirm it. You just have to communicate the two together, and it allows you to share information. So it might just be basic information. Sometimes, for example, my vehicle I have has Bluetooth in it, so it allows me to sync my phone up, and it grabs the music from my Spotify list and plays it on the radio. And it doesn't matter whether it's Spotify or Pandora or whatever, as long as I have Bluetooth, it can pick up any music app that I have on my phone. So it doesn't have to be iTunes, or if you're using a Samsung or something like that. So you could specify that. So I would read a little bit about, if you're not familiar with Bluetooth, I would definitely read on chapter on page 16. There's a table 1.2 that says Bluetooth installation steps. Definitely would recommend reviewing a little bit more in detail about Bluetooth, what it is and what you can do with it. But I'm sure everyone here's heard about Bluetooth before. Different ports for video. We mentioned the VGA and DVI. The VGA is basically analog. DVI is digital visual interface. There's different DVI ports that you could get. Another older one that was very popular at the time called S-Video port. It kind of looks, the S-Video port, I don't think they have a diagram here, but it's similar to, it looks like this right here. That's the output. It looks something like that. And it was another way to communicate a better quality of video to the computer at one time. But like I said, they've kind of gotten away from that. If you look on page 20 of your book, you'll see the S video. It shows you a video card that has the VGA, the DVI, and the S video on it. S video is not used as often. Another thing about DVI, so DVI is kind of tricky because they have 4 different DVIs. They have the single link, the dual link, the single link, DVI-D, and then the dual link DVI-D. So there's like 4 different slots that you can get. So it doesn't, they don't make it confusing, they make it even more confusing. Basically all it does is one provides better resolution, video resolution than another one. More modern thing is HDMI. So an upgrade to DVI is HDMI basically. HDMI is a high definition multimedia interface. So a lot of us know what high def TV is. It uses that same port, which is just a digital interface that can carry audio and video over the same cable. So for example, if you're using S video, you have to use an audio cable and a video cable. I'm not a video cable, audio cable and the S video cable. Or if you're using a DVI or a VGA, you have to use a video or an audio cable. But HDMI, it does audio and video, which is impressive. So for example, my computer at home, I have a DVI or HDMI cable hooked up to it, and it does audio and video for me, so I don't have to do anything else, which makes it beautiful, and it works perfectly. Then I could also hook a regular TV up as my monitor and hook it up to HDMI. It's just insane the things that you can do. Kind of moving on here, I would look at on page 21 at HDMI connector types. So there's an A, B, C, and D. Talks about the different pins, different ports. Very important to know that information. Let's see here. Moving on, there's other display ports as well. So we talked about different ways that you could connect your computer monitor to your computer, but there's also something called a display port, and it comes. Some Windows or some PCs have it. For example, Apple comes with it automatically. It's called the display port. It's just a little tiny port, and I don't have an image of it. But look on page 22, and it explains what the display port is. It gives you a little example of it. Very popular for doing video because a lot of times some of those smaller computers that I have, that's a smaller laptop. Actually, you know what? The work laptop that I have is a Dell. It's called an Ultrabook. And it doesn't have a video card in it, but it has this display port, and I linked a little display port up to it, and it's able to pull up my video, unless I'm using the docking station. Let's see here, moving on. Just kind of get some important points to really discuss. That in a nutshell is pretty much, I would say, review a little bit of Chapter 1, but in a nutshell, those are very important parts that we'll want to talk about. So in our lesson this week, I'll give you some lab work on page 39 for us to do to hand in, but also I'll get the license information out to you in regards to the website that we're going to be using, allow you to actually go on and physically do stuff. So you might be able to physically take a computer apart and watch illustration videos and so forth. So there's a lot of good learning stuff there. So thank you for listening to Chapter 1. I will have another video out there talking about Chapter 2. Chapter 2, we're going to talk a little bit about, I believe we're going to talk a little bit more about the motherboard. We're going to get a little bit a deeper dive into that motherboard, talking about the type of memory that you could put on it, the different processor families and so forth. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Maybe I'll write some notes up on the screen so that we can have something to follow instead of taking notes. So I thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.